Welcome to the Warships podcast with your host, Kelorn, Venicera, and Arun.
Hello and welcome to episode 113 of the Warships podcast. I'm your host, Kelorn, and we're back to our regular programming this week with Venicera and Arun joining me in our virtual recording studio. If you didn't catch it, last week I was lucky enough to get to visit Wargaming North America headquarters here in Austin, where they treated me like a VIP, and we were able to record with a bunch of Wargaming employees, including former co-host Kami Samurai. Vanessa, Arun, did you guys catch anything from? Did anything catch your ear from last week's podcast? Did anything stand out to you that you kind of wanted to discuss this week? Specifically, did you guys make anything of the fact that Sasha said that submarines will be coming to random battles sometime in the new year, and that they plan on balancing 5 classes of ships instead of just the 4 that we have currently in the game?
It sounds interesting, but from the gameplay we saw with submarines, I feel that it will either be boring for the submarine players or rather frustrating for everybody else because of the stealth problems. But perhaps they'll go a completely different way in balancing submarines for random battles compared to what we had in the PvE version.
I guess one of the things that concerned me about the PvE version, Arun, is just how fast the submarines were. In this particular historical era, submarines were much, much slower than surface ships, and they had to rely on their stealth and kind of cunning that people didn't know they were there to get attacks off. Whereas I didn't feel like that was as big of an issue in the PvE version of submarines that we saw with the Halloween event.
Yeah, that's part of it. But I think even if they were to be as fast as they were in the PvE version, if you think about what World of Warships game tends to look like, I think you would run into a lot of problems with submarines in that same way, even if they were as fast as they were, because you would have to constantly reposition. And that means you're not really, trying to hit any targets or anything like that. But perhaps, we'll get like 10-kilometer torpedoes or something, so maybe you'll just play like a Shimakaze with your 20-kilometer torpedoes.
Vanessa, what are your thoughts on the eventual version of the PvE submarines that we saw in the Halloween event? And is that version ready to go straight into randoms? Or if not, what would you change?
Well, as far as PvE is going, I mean, it's a good start. I definitely feel that there's, potential and opportunity there for people to have a lot of fun with it. Especially if they do like scenarios and other forms of, co-op type deals that could really, you could really have fun with it. As far as in random battles, no offense to Wargaming, but they've been working on, this carrier rework, and it's been pretty controversial. I can't talk this morning. It's, to say the least, it's generated a lot of salt in the community, and there's already a lot of complaining with the balancing, at least between cruisers, destroyers, and battleships, let alone the carrier rework that they're going through, and they want to add submarines in on top of this. That just seems like a lot of extra work and balance and craziness thrown in to try and get them in for randoms. I don't know if it's the best idea. I mean, submarines I think would be perfectly fine and okay in the PvE setting, but it just seems like a big undertaking and task for, to add a completely additional class to the game when, they've got a lot of issues going on with the carrier rework on top of just balancing destroyers, cruisers, and battleships.
Submarines and carriers are not the only controversy that we've been dealing with. The one that we've been talking about on the show for the last couple of weeks is is releasing steel for the New Year's events. And this week, more details were released regarding the ability to earn steel through the New Year's events themselves. I did reach out to I.R. Gray in St. Petersburg, and he gave me the following response, which I posted to Reddit in the forums yesterday. So bear with me here because there's quite a bit of verbiage that he gave in his response. Commanders, since the release of 0.7.12 Developer Bulletin, there have been concerns about the steel that will be available for players during the end of the year period, which we've been addressing in streams and chats since then. In addition, we've decided to share a few more points with you, including some numbers illustrating our players and their potential for achieving rewards that will be up for grabs. During the end-of-year events, players will be able to get steel from 4 main sources, in addition to competitive play in ranked and clan battles. These will be Snowflakes, the Milestone event in the name of His Highness, 2 mission chains, as well as the Steel Monsters campaign. Players will be able to receive 2,000 steel from the Milestone event, as well as 2,019 from each of the mission chains, one of which will be available for free for owners of Prinz Eitel Friedrich, while the other will be available for purchase along with the top-tier premium shop bundles containing the same ship. The Steel Monsters campaign will also be available from the premium shop, and the player will have at least 180 days to complete it, which will grant a total of 4,000 steel. All of this totals to 4,000 steel achievable for free and 6,000 achievable after purchase. In addition to the above, players will be able to receive a varying amount of steel for knocking off snowflakes from each of your top-tier ships. While this may look like a literal metric ton of steel to the veterans among you, let us put that in perspective. Only around 30% of the active audience currently has ships eligible for any steel rewards from snowflakes at all. Only 4% of the active audience currently has ships eligible to get them for more than 2,000 steel from snowflakes, and only around 0.4% of the active audience currently has ships eligible to get them more than 4,500 steel from snowflakes. In addition to the above, ranked enthusiasts are able to get 5,500 steel for the season, as well as a maximum of 11,000 steel for clan battles. Please also remember that all of the steel sources above require investment of gameplay time, including the purchasable ones. Sure, many players will gain these missions and campaigns, but only the most dedicated fleet commanders will do it all. Most of the players who fall into the mentioned brackets are also veteran, competitive, or clan players, which this means that there's very little risk of an excessive influx of top-tier steel ships, especially in the hands of very inexperienced players. You will still encounter such players in battle, and you might stumble across the odd battle that's heavy with steel on both sides. However, these instances will be exceptions rather than the rule. In any case, regardless of what type of player you are, we want to give you a fighting chance at getting steel or the ships it unlocks. That being said, both the resource itself as well as these ships will likely stay as a reward for competitive gameplay, and players who invest their time and skill to get it to the top will be the first to achieve such rewards. In addition, they can acquire unique vanity items via other competitive currencies, which are available for achieving rank 1 in rank season or winning enough battles in Typhoon League and clan battles. We plan to keep expanding this system in the future as well. Action stations. So with the New Year's events starting yesterday and today, I've been working on knocking off my snowflakes to earn the approximately 7,700 steel that I'm eligible just for via snowflakes alone. What I'm curious about, Vanessa and Arun, is have your opinions changed at all since the announcement of how much steel was available to be earned, as well as the announcement that I just went through from officially from Wargaming?
As far as opinions changed, no, I'm still holding the fact that I feel this really needs to be something that you need to invest time and effort into, and it needs to be an effort that is an equivalent to what you do into ranked and clan battles. And the amount of free steel there is a little bit more than, what we were kind of, talking about, thinking maybe 1,000 or up to 2,000. But 4,000 is quite a bit. And let me reread that. It is 4,000 that players can basically, achieve for free. And then 6,000 after purchase, which that's, I don't know about the idea of purchasing something, getting even more steel for something that you can just purchase. I don't know. I mean,
to be fair, you have to do in-game activities after you purchase it. You don't just get it for pressing the purchase button.
Well, I understand that. That's still behind a paywall, and I think that's a little bit not good.
I thought the steel thing. Well, my opinion really hasn't changed. Although I was quite surprised when I saw the price of the Steel Monsters campaign. I really didn't expect it to be that expensive. On the snowflake thing, though, I do have to agree with what Earl posted, that it does take quite a considerable amount of effort to do some of those things. I mean, if you think about the snowflake thing, just play one battle in one ship. You have even just tier 9 and 10 plus the premiums will mean that you're going to be playing more than half of a day of World of Warships. I'm talking 12 hours, if not more, just to play one game in basically all of those ships. Okay, maybe not quite, depends on how many of them you have, of course, but I'm just saying that, one World of Warships match does take quite a bit of time, and tier 9s and 10s, if you have all of them, add up to something like 30 or 40 ships, right? And if you add in premiums, tier 8 plus, you're definitely reaching 30 to 40, which would be about 12 hours of gameplay just to play one battle.
I mean, I have 28 premium ships that are tier 8 or higher. I counted them out last night. I started working on them. And admittedly, I am using co-op battles, which tend to be a little shorter than random battles. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of time investment to get all that stuff done. I'm not disputing that. It just seems like a lot of steel. Like, I mean, you're talking about more than an entire clan battle season.
Well, I mean, isn't that good though? I think more steel is good. In fact, the fact that ranked only gives half of what a clan battle season seems to give, in my opinion, is a pretty bad thing. But, our opinion kind of differs on this aspect anyway.
I actually agree with you on that, Arun. I think that a ranked battle, rank 1 should be worth what a full clan battle season is worth. I mean, you're essentially going through the same amount of effort on a personal level to get rank 1 as you are in clan battles, in my opinion. Maybe
I would
more.
also like to echo that and just further iterate that why is clan battles almost twice the amount of steel given over ranked? That I think is a bit, I mean, it's not so much that clan is over, it's the fact that it's almost double.
It is double. It is exactly double.
Isn't it actually slightly more than double if you add in the matches after Typhoon? Those also
the 11,000 actually includes the 1,000 that you would get in Hurricane. So 11,000 is the upper limit than what you could get. So, I mean, yeah, I personally think that a ranked season should be worth what a clan battle season is. I think that a lot of, like I was saying, the amount of effort that you put in one way or the other. Now, where we've differed, Arun, is that I feel like the amount of steel the amount of effort that you're going to put into getting the steel from the things that you're going to get it from in the New Year's event is significantly less than a ranked or a clan battle season. Yes, it's going to take a lot of time, 12 hours or 14 hours or 20 hours of gameplay or whatever it is. But, people that are playing ranked and getting to rank 1 are putting in at least that amount of time. People that are playing clan battles are putting in probably double that amount of time. So I don't really feel like the amount of effort necessary is equitable between the competitive ways of getting steel and the non-competitive ways of getting steel. So no, I don't think you're getting it for free, which is what I was really worried about. But you're also not like, I don't know. My opinion has changed a little bit since the response that Earl gave. I definitely am not as triggered as I was previous to it, but I still don't really like it.
I think one of the reasons why Wargaming decided to add this much steel is because they probably looked at the numbers and were like, wow, I guess most of our players just ignore that steel exists because, at the rate they were going, they were basically never going to get anything from steel. And and when I say that, I don't, say like, oh, it's the potatoes. I mean, people like me included in there, because at the rate I was going...
You're not a potato?
Well, okay. But what I'm trying to say is that even at the rate I was earning steel, I'm not sure I would have got the ship from it, even in 2019. So, okay, maybe if we had enough ranked seasons, maybe. But that's a pretty big maybe.
Yeah, and honestly, we're about to get another set of ranked sprint seasons that actually start today, and then the second one starts just after the new year. I still disagree that coal is the only thing you get from a ranked sprint season. No, you shouldn't get 5,500 steel from a ranked sprint season, but 2,000 steel doesn't seem to be out of the realm of possibility. I think that seems equitable for going to a ranked steel. I mean, you could even do 1,000 steel. If you're going to put in the time to go through ranked sprint, I think you should get something out of it other than just 10,000 coal.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I have fun in ranked sprint, but I'm playing ranked sprint to have fun. I'm not playing ranked sprint to do the rewards. Whereas I'm playing ranked to get the rewards. I'm playing competitive battles. I'm playing clan battles to get the steel rewards. I mean, is that where you're at with it, Arun?
Well, I'd like to be, but honestly, so here's how it went. I haven't been playing that much World of Warships in the past few days. Well, maybe even a few weeks now. I have been playing, but not that much. And the reason why is that, I went and played clan battles, and honestly, it basically killed my desire to play the game for a while. And I don't think me wanting it enough is going to make me want to play that mode enough. It just doesn't seem to mix.
Who did you play with, if you don't mind my asking?
The same clan I have always been in, Pravda, but I don't think the clan part is necessarily the problem. It's more about it just doesn't fit for me. The fact that you have to be at the specific time to play the game, and it's at a time that I don't usually play the game, and the time of day. And it's not because, Wargaming could change the time zones, whatnot. It doesn't matter because I'm in Europe, which means that I'm going to be, clan battles are going to happen more or less at primetime Europe, because that's when everybody else is going to be playing and all those things. And to me, it just doesn't feel fun, is what I'm trying to say. Whereas basically every other mode seems more fun to me in this game.
I think that's fair. I know that Vanessa has a lot of the same issues as you do with the time zone issue. And I think that's reflected by a lot of people that aren't kind of we can talk all we want about that. Yeah, it's the prime time is when people are, the most people are playing, but that doesn't mean that everybody's playing. And so now you have a gameplay that is restricted based on, are you able to play during prime time? And, I've always been sympathetic to the people that's an issue for, Vanessa and you, Arun, and the people that are around that time. I can't play every time that it's during prime. It's actually in a really good time zone for me personally, but that doesn't mean that it's perfect. And there are a bunch of times that I can't.
Yeah, I hope Wargaming will eventually be able to address this. I know we have talked internally to them quite a bit about it, but it's just one of those things that, we hope that the game can grow and that there can be other options that they can explore to maybe open that up and allow people to do clan battles and, be able to actually participate more in the competitive aspects of their game.
So this morning we were given Azuma, Viribus Unitas, Yahagi, Lyon, and Nustrashimi to test out. With very little time before the podcast was start to record it, I was only able to test Azuma and Viribus Unitas. So let me share my first impressions of those two. And I know that you guys, Vanessa and Arun, probably didn't have a lot of time to test these, if any at all. So we're going to talk about them in more depth on our next episode. But my first impression of Azuma is that she feels like a bigger version of Zhao. Since Conqueror is already Mega Zhao, we clearly need a new nickname for Azuma. But her shells feel accurate and precise, but the AP is just not very punchy. It's effective against cruisers, but even broadside battleships tend to shrug off the Azuma's AP. So shots that I was routinely making with Stalingrad would not work with Azuma. Where the ship shines is with her HE fire. Set up with full concealment, spotter plane, and main battery module 3 for a faster reload. Azuma sports a 15.8 second reload on her guns, 19.1 kilometer base range, 22.9 with the spotter plane up, and 11.6 kilometer detection. Her relatively high speed of 34 knots, decent maneuverability, and bow armor that can be overmatched by 380 millimeter guns because it's only 25 millimeters thick, indicate that this is a flanking HE farming ship, which is a role that she frankly excels at in the current in the current random meta. I guess my question for you guys is, hearing what my thoughts are on the ship, is that something that the game needs? We already have several ships that kind of fill this role. What, if anything, do you think that Azuma might bring unique to that role?
So 2 questions really quick for you, because I have not looked specifically at it. Do you feel that Zhao's AP performs better than this ship's AP? Because that's one of the things that I think that people really don't talk about much with Zhao, is just how good its AP can be. And 2, torpedoes.
Well, to answer the second question first, there are no torpedoes, which is a little sad. But in regards to the AP, I feel like Zhao's AP is punchier for what it is. I feel like it's got a higher velocity than the 310 millimeter shells off Azuma do. That said, Zhao's AP is really situational. You have to have it loaded at the right time, or it just doesn't work. As soon as they angle, Zhao's AP is ineffective. Azuma's sort of the same way. I was certainly able to punish, cruisers, especially the kind of the light cruisers, Neptunes and Minotaurs and things like that took really excessive damage from Azuma's AP. But I went up against, a broadside Yamato at 8 kilometers, and my shells went in right under the second turret and they shattered. So that shot, which, I would expect to get a Citadel with Zhao or Des Moines or Stalingrad, I didn't get any damage, or I got just regular shatters and normal pen damage. Does that answer your questions, Vanessa?
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely have to take a look at it and give it some testing, but I don't know. Just hearing that, I just don't see why I would take that ship over Zhao. I think that ship just on paper, from what you've just described, it doesn't seem like there would be any reason for me to take it over Zhao.
Well, it's because this kind of a ship can actually counter a Stalingrad, kind of. Like, it can penetrate the deck armor of one, or other ships like the Stalingrad. Although I would argue that the 25 millimeter bow is going to be a fairly big downside. But I guess that'll just be one of those things you would have to play around with, considering, the ship actually has fairly decent concealment for what it can do. It's not quite battleship levels anymore.
Well, I guess one of the things that I felt while I was playing is, as a farming ship, as an HE spamming ship, it felt fine. I mean, there was no problem with it. My issue is, and where I kind of got into a bit of a discussion with some of my clanmates, is that I don't feel like the overall power level of Azuma in its current form is equivalent to the power level of Stalingrad. Now, I'm not saying that we should give, Azuma laser accurate guns and it be a Japanese Stalingrad. But what I'm saying is that we need to make it equivalently good to Stalingrad in terms of power level. So I think that you do need to maintain the differentiation. I like the fact that she's an HE ship, but she needs just a little something more, in my opinion. I mean, right now she's got pretty good HE alpha, but her HE alpha is, when you land the equivalent number of shells, is relatively similar to what Zhao is at. She does have 5,100 damage HE alpha, so it does feel like a lot, but it's just, one of my big problems is that she has 27% HE fire chance, whereas Stalingrad's got 33%. So it's like, okay, well, why is Stalingrad better in that? I mean, vodka, we can make jokes about vodka shells or whatever, but I don't know. I just feel like that she needs a little something more. Some people were talking about giving her the Zhao torpedoes. Even if they only gave her the 8-kilometer torpedoes, it would give her a close range suicide option that she doesn't have right now, kind of a last ditch. If she got the 12-kilometer torps, she could stealth torp in a battle cruiser, which I think that's a little, you can play with that if you want. But I personally think she just needs a little something and go from there.
Let's just give her 20-kilometer torpedoes.
Clearly, they should be the 20-kilometer deep water torpedoes from Asahio, right? Aaron?
And rename it Senjo.
Yes. Actually, I'd like to bring up one point. I think the ship, for some reason, doesn't look really like a Japanese cruiser to me. It looks kind of empty on one side, unlike what's on the deck. But other than that, looking at the bow, it more reminds me of like an Henri or something like that. It feels kind of weird.
I personally look at her turrets, and they don't look like any other turrets in the game, let alone the Japanese turrets. So yeah, I do kind of get what you're talking about, Room. She doesn't really look all that Japanese to me. She also has this huge midsection where there's 3 catapult launchers for planes, or 3 planes on catapult launchers. And it's just like this huge wasted space that's all Citadel space if she gets hit there. So, I didn't talk about her armor. Her armor is similar scheme, other than the bow armor that we covered. She's similar armor to Stalingrad. She does have a very trolley kind of armor scheme. So if you're angled away or angled toward, and you can bait them to shoot into that belt armor, it does bounce a lot of things that you kind of would expect to get hit by. I very rarely got citadeled by the enemy battleships, but I did take pen damage and bounce things. So it's kind of that Zhao trolley armor that you kind of are used to, but it's certainly not, I'm going to go bash in like I'm a battleship type of armor.
The ship feels really maneuverable though, especially for its size, which kind of catches me off guard. Maybe that is a little bit like the Japanese ones are, at least in terms of rudder.
Oh no, like I said, she definitely feels like she is a maneuverable ship. I do like that aspect of her. She, you throw Zhao around and avoid shells and all sorts of crazy stuff, and you're spamming HE. This is the bigger version of this with 310 millimeter guns. Like, that is what it is. But I just, like, we have Zhao, we've got Henri, and then now we're going to have Azuma. They're all kind of the same thing in a way, in my opinion. Like, there's not a lot of difference there.
Get into actually, just fired the game up real quick and get into actually look at the ship. Visually, it looks like a mini Yamato with a lot of crosses between Nagato and some other designs there when you get to the middle of the ship. But looking from the front and from kind of the front side, to me, it looks like a Yamato with the, kind of pagoda mast crossing between, IJN cruisers and Yamato. But going to what you're saying though, Kelorn, I mean, we've got Alaska coming, we've got Stalingrad and Kronstadt, and now this. It does seem like we're getting a lot of these, higher tier battle cruisers per se, quote unquote, that they are putting between the categories and really kind of, muddying the waters or really having bits of shades of gray between, battleships and cruisers. And we just get these really interesting ships at these tiers that they keep bringing out. And it does seem like they're just, constantly, and maybe it's, that they want, people want like a battle cruiser line, but they don't necessarily want to do a battle cruiser line. And maybe this is kind of their way of addressing that.
Perhaps. I mean, we're going to test it a little bit more this week. And in the next episode, guys, we will talk in these ships a little more in depth when Vanessa and Arun have had some chances to play it, and we've had a chance to test all of them. But before we move on to another topic, I did get a chance to play a couple of games in Viribus Unitas, which is an Austro-Hungarian battleship, flagged as German for the convenience of commanders in the game, but her 12 305mm, which is 12-inch guns, in an ABXY super firing configuration are unique at Tier 4. She's slow and well-armored, but her turret angles aren't as really spectacular. She's honestly a pretty fun low-tier ship that isn't quite overpowered in the way that the super accurate Nikolai is. You definitely are going to expect some shell dispersion here, folks, because it is kind of like a shotgun. But that said, it's still 12 guns, and they're in 4 turrets. So it's really quite a unique little ship. We have IRL Gray and April. We're talking about, her huge badonkadonk, because she does have a pretty big rear end. We'll go with that. But I guess I've always been a little leery about premium ships at these lower tiers, the tier 4, the tier 5, especially battleship premiums. Something like this, Vanessa, could really disrupt the balance and could be a real seal clubbing ship.
Is it Imperial Nikolai?
It is not Imperator Nikolai. It's got the same number of guns of the same caliber, but the Sigma on Nikolai just is crazy.
Okay, so that more or less answers the question. I mean, if it's not Impnik, then I mean, why bother?
I mean, it's not like Nikolai is even the best tier 4 battleship, right? We have the Orion, and then there's the premium battleship.
Arkansas Beta?
No, I guess Arkansas Beta is okay if there are no carriers, but I meant Orion and the premium Japanese one, Ishizuchi. Those two are... yeah, I would argue that those ships aren't exactly balanced for their tier.
Oh, I think that this game in general, I don't feel like is terribly well balanced at the low tiers. I think there's a lot of things, up to and including tier 5 that are just not well balanced. I think that tier 8, 9, 10, they're balanced relatively well. And then you have kind of the redheaded stepchildren tiers at 6 and 7, which are sort of balanced, but not quite. So I really feel like anything tier 5 or below, they don't really care about balance because people don't play as many games there.
I don't think that's necessary. I mean, I know for the longest time, there was a lot of people who just consistently lived at tier 4, 5, and 6. I mean, tier 6 was one of the most popular tiers for quite a while, at least on the NA server. I know as a lot of people played, especially before like the economy changes. And I mean, when the game first started out, I remember like that if you wanted to get into a quick game and get going, that, tiers 5 and 6 is where you played and where it was at. I mean, you still have people complain about the matchmaking of tier 5 and 6 to this day when they did the changes.
Well, we'll see kind of how that all turns out. But like I said, we'll cover these test ships in more depth in our next episode. For now, we have some announcements from the dev blog to go over. First up, Alaska is coming for free XP soon, trademark, albeit for 1 million free XP. There have been some complaints that 1 million is pretty inflationary for a tier 9 premium. So I guess my question is less about whether or not you think, Alaska is a good ship, but is she worth 1 million free XP, or is that too much?
Well, I'm just going to go out based on what I've tested. I think that 1 million is a bit too much for the ship that you're getting. And, maybe it should be in line with the other ships that they've brought out, but I don't know. Maybe you are right. Maybe they are looking at inflation and the amount of free XP out there and say that we need to adjust this in order to pull some of the free XP that's in there out of the, out of people's pools.
What about you, Arun? Where are you at with the 1 million free XP for Alaska?
I think it's okay, although I think people will be kind of disappointed when they get the ship for it. The people who don't have just free XP lying around doing nothing at all. And, the ones that work for it, I think they might be quite disappointed. But on the other hand, I think many people do have a lot of free XP available. Honestly, what I would wish is that they wouldn't remove the old premium or free XP ships so that people could pick, the earlier versions. I'm mostly worried about the fact that if somebody started later in the game and they don't have this large amount of free XP available, what will happen is that if this inflation continues, then they won't be able to get the free XP ships when they are available for them because, they just won't have as much. On the other hand, maybe Wargaming did some quick maths and found out that if they do make it 1 million, then maybe people's free XP budgets or the amount they have left over will be lower. But for me, I could just buy the ship right now for free XP, for example. So it doesn't specifically matter for me.
One of the things that happened with Musashi is that she was originally 750,000 free XP, and then eventually she came to the Arsenal when Arsenal was released later in the year and was available for coal. I honestly feel like offering it, for free XP early on, and then offering it later as as additional way of getting it via coal, I feel like that's actually a pretty good policy. So I'm kind of hoping that they do the same thing here, and that we do see Alaska eventually in the Arsenal available for coal.
Although, on the note I was talking about, I do literally have more free XP than credits in game right now, apparently.
That's disturbing on a profound level, Aaron. So that said, let's stick with the tier 9 theme for a minute, because Vanessa, you and I, our begging has come to fruition. Ranked Battles is returning at tier 9, this time using the arms race mode, which I know, Arun, you talked quite a bit about the fact that you really liked arms race, so we'll get to that in a minute. But it appears that we will also get 2 ranked sprint seasons here at the end of the year, as I mentioned, which are not going to be the tier 9 and arms race. They will actually be a tier 6, and there we'll get a 5-on-5 season and a 7-on-7 season back to back. These, as we said before, will be rewarded with 10,000 coal if you rank out to rank 1. So, but I am wondering how you guys feel that a tier 9 ranked season will pan out. My guess is that this will be a full ranked season. It'll be the full 2 months or whatever we normally get for a ranked season. There are now a lot of ships. We will probably have Alaska in the game at that point. We have Kronstadt, we have Musashi, we have Missouri. There's blacks floating around that people have gotten in previous ranked seasons or purchased for steel. Not to mention that there's actually quite a few really good battleships and cruisers and other things at tier 9. Ibuki just got a buff. Iowa just got an HP repair buff. I mean, there's a lot of things at tier 9 that we've never tested in this kind of competitive setting, because competitive has always in the past been, things like tier 8 or tier 10. This is going to be a new experience. What are some of the things that you're looking forward to at a tier 9 ranked season, especially on arms race? And what are some of the things that you're kind of worried about?
Well, I'm obviously totally excited to pull tier 9 ships out and use them in a competitive mode. There's a lot of ships at that category or that tier that are among my favorite ships in the game. Not only just in game, but also from historical speaking. And so, yes, that I'm very much looking for that. What I'll have a little bit of trepidation about is arms race. I actually did not test arms race when we had that mode available, so I really don't know what to think about it. I do hope that there is some provision or way of, as you play that mode, and perhaps you two can talk about it a little bit more, but I hope that the level of effort that you put into that mode can maybe help persuade the match a little bit more than say, the standard clan meta. But that being said, I'm very much looking forward to this is something new. This is something different than what we've had over the past quite a few seasons of ranked. So, I mean, it is changing it up. And for that aspect alone, you gotta tip your hat to Wargaming for that of, hey, at least we're going to try something different and change up the current way things have been going.
I guess, Aaron, I know you played arms race to a fair degree. Can you give us your thoughts on kind of the arms race in general and it being ranked?
So I'll actually explain what arms race is to people who haven't played it. So arms race is a mode that was available for tier 9 and 10, and what it included was that it didn't have cap zones until a very end game portion. What instead happened is that while you were playing, random buffs spawned that were kind of like cap zones, that there was a countdown timer and you had to go to the cap zone. Once the countdown timer ticked down and your ship was in it, then you would get the buff, and all ships within a certain radius, allied ships that is, would also get the buff. So this and the buffs would spawn more or less towards the middle of the map, meaning that it would force players together, because if you are the one that takes a buff, you get double it, and if an ally takes it, you get only 1 point of buffing, meaning that people would be encouraged to go in there quite often. And what ended up happening is that this forced players together far more quicker than random battles do, which made it fun because you got more action. However, in ranked, what I'm worried about is the fact that the buffing thing will probably entirely rely on what destroyers do. Sure. At first, it'll be different. People will try all kinds of things. Oh, yeah, a battleship goes in and takes the buff. But I think eventually it'll settle down into a meta where basically only the destroyers go after the buffs, unless it's something that's like behind your lines or something, which would mean that all the risk is again being put on the destroyers. And in a ranked environment, this is going to be far worse because it won't just be destroyers you're fighting. It'll include things like radars, because we'll definitely have a lot of those. And so what you'll probably see is that you'll see a radar ship parked in a position where the radar covers a buff zone. And if you see that the buff is taken, radar is used, and, people will blow the destroyer up that's in it. And because of that, I'm kind of worried, because what I dislike in ranked is that so much emphasis is put on what destroyers do, whereas cruisers and battleships basically play kind of like a random battle. They just shoot the enemies, try not to die, do all those things. Whereas destroyers, everybody expects destroyers to do all the actual heavy lifting of winning the game, because they're the ones that have to play the objectives. But that's puts their ships at risk. So I hope they add some kind of buff zones that have to be taken by cruisers and or battleships.
Yeah, I didn't do a lot of testing of the arms race mode. I thought it was fun, but I was a little surprised when they decided that they were going to make a ranked season out of it. I guess my concern is still focused a little bit on the ships. I'm really concerned about things like Musashi. I'm concerned about the impact of Missouri and her and her radar. I'm concerned about Kronstadt and Alaska in the game and the things that they'll do. So I guess, are you more concerned about the arms race aspects of it, Arun, or do some of the ships concern you?
Actually, the ships do concern me more, and it's exactly the ships you mentioned. I would like to say that Missouri would be a big deal, but I'm actually not sure. Maybe Musashi is a bigger problem, because now you suddenly have tier 10 fighting power that's at tier 9, because you're not going to get carriers, right? Meaning that the downside of the Musashi isn't actually a downside anymore. And so,
well, I mean, she still has a poor Sigma.
Sure.
I mean, that's still an issue. Like I was playing her, to knock off the Snowflake, and it's very frustrating to not get the shots that I count on getting in my Yamato.
Sure, but you're a lot, Musashi in tier 9 is a lot stronger than Yamato is in tier 10, in my opinion, at least in terms of fighting other battleships.
I don't disagree with that at all. I'm just saying, like, it's not exactly a tier 10.
But yeah, Missouri is going to be a problem too, because, well, now we have a battleship that can radar the buff zone, so destroyers will be at risk from that too. And the worst part about all of these things is that these aren't ships that anybody can just get. You can't get the Missouri anymore, I think, right? Unless...
except you get Santa Crates, which, that guy spent lots of money.
Yeah, exactly. So for all intents and purposes, you can't get the ship anymore. And because of that, it feels kind of... it feels like people won't be playing the same game. The experienced players that got the ship at the time, they'll have a much better time, I think.
I am curious a little bit about, Vanessa, maybe you can jump in here too. What do you think that the impact of Alaska and Kronstadt is going to be? Do you think that they're going to be a big deal? Do you think that they're going to be kind of whatever?
Honestly, I think they might be whatever. I mean, from what I played of those two ships, I mean, I didn't think they were that, spectacular. They're no Stalingrad. And I mean, you can play them well, and I know there's going to be people that play them really, really well, but I don't feel that they're Stalingrad. And it's something that, we've asked for tier 9 ranked season for quite a while, but one of the caveats that I've always asked about, a potential tier 9 ranked season was that it exclude premiums and that you have just, tier 9 ships going at it. I'm surprised you didn't mention Izumo, because I know how much you like the changes to Izumo recently.
I don't feel like, I feel like Izumo is a tier 9 ship. Like, I feel like it fits perfectly now. Like, I don't think I think it's good, but I don't think it's overpowered or has an aspect to it that is slightly unfair, which I definitely do feel like is the case in both Musashi and Missouri.
Yeah, and then I do agree with that. And I, we're going to see what happens this ranked season and see how things turn out. I do feel that, we're going to see a lot of Musashis and a lot of Missouris. And, that will definitely play a role in this ranked season.
There's actually one ship that we didn't talk about that might have an even bigger impact this season though, and that's the Black, because it's a destroyer. It has radar, it has smoke, and it has torpedoes that nobody knows how to dodge, because these torpedoes
They're sea mines.
Yeah, because these torpedoes are so slow that they take so long to get to you that you're not used to it. Usually when you play the game, you see a destroyer at a certain distance. And then if torpedoes don't appear within a certain amount of time, you'll be like, okay, I guess he didn't fire torpedoes at me. You can't really do that with the Black because the torpedoes are so slow. They take forever to get anywhere, and they hit hard. So if they randomly clip your destroyer is in a world of hurt.
No, I definitely feel like, I'm actually considering, do I want to save up my steel and get Azuma eventually, or I want to, spend the steel that I have and get Black? And that's a difficult decision for me because, as much as I was kind of bellyaching about Azuma, I was having fun playing her, at least in randoms. We can talk all we want, next week about whether or not she's a competitive ship, and which at this point I'd say no, but she's a fun ship. But if Black is as good as I feel like she has the potential to be in a ranked season, I think you're right, Arun. I think that she may be the Gremyashki of the next ranked season.
I mean, we all agree that Fletcher is a great ship, right? And the Black is basically a Fletcher, except the torpedo part, which arguably is a big reason why the Fletcher is so strong. But
she gets radar.
Yeah, exactly.
And a smoke. She gets radar and smoke.
Yeah, and it's a 24-second radar, so it's not completely useless either. And we're still talking about American Smokescreen 2 on top of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're right. I think Black is concerning, and just and that's we get back to when we were playing ranked sprint, like we talked about, Arun. There were times where I was playing Gremyashki or I was playing Giulio Cesare, and I was like, these ships aren't fair. Like, they're just not fair. Kamikaze, just not fair. And I were in a ranked sprint season. Whatever, it takes 2 seconds. The rewards are just coal. It's not a big deal. In a full-on ranked season with 5,500 steel on the line, that's a bigger deal.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. This is definitely going to be, we have our preseason predictions like we normally do, and then give it a couple weeks, and I'm sure we're going to have probably a different opinion.
Yeah, I definitely think that the meta is going to be a really evolving one in this upcoming Tier 9 ranked season. I think that it's going to be, we're going to see things, particularly with arms race, that we've never seen in ranked before. And so, that could be really awesome and be just a lot of fun, or it has the potential to kind of blow up in everybody's face. So I am curious, and as we get closer to that ranked season starting, we'll definitely talk a little bit more about that. Arun, did you have something real quick before we moved on?
Yes, my prediction is that some people will find it a lot of fun early on, and some people will complain like no tomorrow about it because it'll be different.
Well, people are going to complain about it one way or the other because, I just expect complaining. It's World of Warships and, the salty seas. But that said, we are getting a new Tier 5 British heavy cruiser Exeter of the Battle of River Plate Flame. She was she was the heavy cruiser, which in association with her 2 Leander class light cruisers were attacked and disabled the Graf Spee and forced her into Montevideo Harbor. So the cruiser Exeter is coming to World of Warships next year sometime. We have not gotten a test version of this ship yet, but the dev blog does indicate that she will have 6 203mm guns in an ABX arrangement with 12-second reload, decent 12-kilometer torps that go 61 knots, a repair party, and a smoke generator at Tier 5. This is going to be our first Royal Navy heavy cruiser in the game, and I do have to say that looking at her stats, they seem crazy good and very much have the potential to be overpowered, because she honestly excels in every way in comparison to Furutaka except for torp range. So I guess my question is this too much for Tier 5? Should she have been Tier 6? Does she need to be scaled back? Does she need to lose the repair party or the smoke generator or both?
Well, if you compare her to the Furutaka, then if she actually performs as well as Furutaka, yes, she definitely needs to be scaled back. I mean, if you look at the ranked sprint seasons, what was the best performing tech tree ship? I think other than Nicholas, or maybe even including Nicholas, it was the Furutaka.
Furutaka.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, Furutaka is amazing. She has good armor for its tier. The guns penetrate with HE basically anything. AP can be fired at even battleships. She's fairly fast, maneuverable, and she has the longest range torpedoes for its tier. So if the Exeter is even better than that, it might not be a Tier 5 ship.
I guess this was like a classic, is this power creep kind of situation, particularly in a premium power creep. But Vanessa, did you take a look at Exeter at all, and did you have any kind of preliminary thoughts just looking at the stats?
No, but I am very much waiting to test this ship. This is one of those historical ships that, one who likes naval history definitely wants to get their hands on it. And I hope they do it good and do it justice, but definitely don't want it to be overpowered. I definitely, hope it's in line with the other Tier 5 ships, especially cruisers out there. And being that it is a heavy cruiser, if it's substantially better than Furutaka, then that's going to be some issues there, but hopefully not. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see how it goes. The fact, you are going to have smoke and the ability to fire HE. Am I correct? I did see that.
You did see that. That is correct.
Okay. So it's going to be interesting.
So, I'm worried about the power creep aspect, like I was talking about. I'm worried about us getting premium ships that are, just flat out better than tech tree ships. So, I mean, like I said, I'm worried about those things. I'm worried. I'm looking forward to testing her. The one thing I did want to bring up is that, keep in mind that the Royal Navy did not have a whole bunch of heavy cruisers like the United States Navy did, or even the Japanese Navy. The Royal Navy relied on their light cruisers, which is why we have a light cruiser line for the Royal Navy in the game. And they had certain heavy cruisers that they didn't do a whole lot with. So we will probably see, Exeter. We will probably see the Northampton class, I believe it is, and things like that as premium ships. But I do not expect a full heavy cruiser line of Royal Navy, in the game at any point. So that said, our last topic for the week here, and before we go have a very happy holiday season, is that the CV rework is coming in patch 0.8.0, which we expect at the end of January. There has been some discontent over the state of the CV rework in recent weeks, with some people going so far as to say that it's incomplete. So, where are you guys at with the CV rework? How much have you taken a look at it on the PTS? Do you think that the state of the CV rework is ready for release? And are you happy with it, just in general, before we close it out for the year?
Short answer, no. Longer answer, you have a mode that you're bringing out that a lot of people are anticipating. That mode needs more work and more polish, and you're bringing it out anyway, even though it needs more work and more polish. I don't think that's a good idea, even though, a lot of people want change in the carriers. There's not a lot of people playing carriers. I don't know. Better the devil that than the one that you don't. And I know there's been many people who participated in testing. We tested it. It was interesting. There was definitely some enjoyable aspects of it, but I've seen some of our carrier players talk extensively about it. I know Farah has really put a lot of work and effort into trying to help design and persuade to good design a mode of play and abilities that carrier players would enjoy, at least carrier players of his perspective and his ability and what he's experienced, and, try and bring a class of ship that, hopefully more people can enjoy, but that's also reflected well in the balance between the other classes in the game. And I don't feel we're there yet. And I don't think it's necessarily a good idea to maybe release it right now. I still think that's, maybe we should test it for a little while longer and maybe try and come in with some different ideas to try and, maybe address some of the concerns that the players have had while testing these ships.
From my perspective, I like the carrier rework, like the basics of it, although I don't think it's finished unless there has been some major changes very recently. I'm talking in the last few weeks. I don't think it was anywhere near ready because it's basically Farah brought up a very good point when he was on the show. That is, it's a new carrier rework. You want people to play it. So the most important thing is for the entry-level carriers to be really fun to play. But we are nowhere near this position. In fact, it's completely the other way around, where the tier 10s are much more fun to play, whereas the low tiers end up being probably more boring to play than carriers right now. Although, I suppose, with no auto drops, they aren't exactly exciting right now either. But basically, I don't think carriers are in any state to be released right now in the way they have been. However, if Wargaming works hard on it, I suppose they might be able to rush out a solution of some kind, but I don't know if that would be a good idea. And so I think a lot of change needs to be done, and I would rather that they postpone it and try to fix it more.
Well, I'm going to make it 3 out of 3 because I agree. I think that that the CV rework does need a little bit more work before it would go live. I do think that they have the potential to make some of the changes that are really important to the community before 0.8.0 and actually make it out on time. But with the holiday season and the way that the patch cycle goes, I don't really see it happening. So, like I said, I agree. I'm worried about it. I do wish that the lower tier ones were a little more fun. I still haven't seen any final revision of how the leveling will be, going from tier 4 to tier 6 to tier 8 to tier 10. How much XP is that going to take? How many games are you going to have to play at each of those tiers? I'm a little concerned about all of those things as well, and we just haven't seen it yet. So, there are things to be worried about. We talked, when I was with Sasha last week, he said that they wanted to release one more line of ships this year that they didn't get to. My guess is that those ships were the Royal Navy aircraft carriers, but they weren't going to release them until the CV rework was done. So, if that's the case, then it's already a little bit behind the schedule of where they wanted it to be. Next time we'll talk a little bit about the Russian battleships that they announced at WG Fest just last weekend. There's not a lot there to talk about just yet, so I didn't really want to get into it too deeply. But we've got these 2 lines of ships coming, and at least one or the other one was meant for this year and didn't get there. So I feel like they've put a lot of work into the CV rework, but I don't think they're done. Just because there's been a lot of work doesn't mean that it was all successful.
Yeah, I agree. It's frustrating and disappointing as from a fan perspective, because we all want this game to succeed. We want people to come in and enjoy the game and enjoy it for a long time and be able to come and play with friends and play, pick any of the classes of ships in the game and just have fun. And there's an aspect of this game that we feel is lacking and not quite there yet. And, we want the best for the game and best for the community. And just speaking personally, I don't feel like this is the best time or the best moment to be making these changes. I mean, yeah, I know people complain about the carriers, but how often do you run into carriers? I mean, it's not that often. And now, you're going to get these changes. You're probably going to run into carrier players more, but it's going to open up a whole different, level of experience, a level of, participation, and it's good. The outcomes and things that you're used to in matches are going to change invariably. And, I don't want to say we're changing one problem from another, but I feel like there really needs to be more work done.
Well, we'll see what's the shape the final CV rework takes as we get closer to patch 0.8.0. Well, that's it for this week, folks. Arun, Vanessa, did you guys have anything to say here? It's going to be the holidays before we record again.
I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday coming up here, or holidays, as people have already been celebrating. And, just stay safe, everyone, and enjoy some warships or tanks and planes, as I've been doing. I've been playing all three when I can lately. So I've just really been enjoying the various wargaming stuff.
Arun, did you have anything for the holidays?
Sure. Hei Dioligigila, which means Merry Christmas to everyone. And that's basically it, because we'll be there before New Year, right?
Yeah, we should be able to record next Thursday. So, well, Merry Christmas to everyone, and Merry Christmas to you, you two, Vanessa and Arun. I do appreciate the work we've done this year, and I hope you guys have a good holiday, and that everybody travels safely through SeaTac so Vanessa doesn't have to tear her hair out. Right, Vanessa?
Yeah, well, I also do the smart thing of try and save some time off to use right after Christmas so that I don't have to deal with the post-Christmas travel. I'll work Christmas Eve and Christmas, and then I'll be off for a week.
Oh, nice. Well, congratulations for that. As always, follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Warships Podcast and Twitter at Warships Podcast for updates between episodes. Don't forget to check out Arun on YouTube and Twitch as well. He has been putting out some pretty good videos lately. We, of course, want to thank our amazing Patreon backers. If you're interested in supporting us, please consider becoming a Patreon backer yourself. We do appreciate every dollar that you guys donate to us to create our content. We would not be able to create the content that we have without you guys. Take care, everyone, and Merry Christmas.